Before meeting my parents for the first time, I asked my girlfriend to dress modestly. She snapped, "Don't be weird. I can wear what I want. I am not your property." That night, my parents pulled me aside and said one sentence that changed everything. It's funny how you can know someone for a year, think you're building a life with them, and then have it all come undone in a single quiet moment over a dinner table. My moment came on a Saturday night, the first time my girlfriend Megan was meeting my parents. I wasn't nervous, but I was aware that my world and her world were two very different places, and I was about to find out if they could coexist. My parents are simple people in the best sense of the word. My dad spent 40 years as a master carpenter, a man whose word is his bond and whose handshake is a contract. My mom was a nurse. They're kind, decent, and deeply traditional. They believe in respect, humility, and the quiet dignity of a well-lived life. Their home is not a place for loud arguments or flashy displays. It's a place of calm. Megan was not a person of calm. She was a whirlwind of social media ambition, a self-proclaimed lifestyle influencer who was always performing for an invisible audience on her phone. Our relationship had been a constant negotiation between my quiet private life and her loud public one. I went along with it because I thought I loved her, because I thought the person she was when the camera was off was the real her. I was wrong. The week before the dinner, I'd approached the topic of what to wear. It was a delicate dance. I knew if I came at it the wrong way, it would blow up in my face. "Hey," I said one evening as she was scrolling through an online boutique on her laptop. I was thinking about Saturday. My parents are really simple, old-fashioned people. That blue dress you wore to my company dinner last year would be perfect. You looked incredible in that. It was a suggestion wrapped in a compliment, a reasonable, low-stakes request. Her reaction was anything but reasonable. She snapped her laptop shut, her eyes flashing with a familiar defensive anger. "Are you serious right now? You're trying to tell me what to wear." "No, Megan. I'm just trying to give you a heads up about my parents. First impressions are a big deal for them. I want them to see you, not just an outfit." "They will see me," she snapped, standing up. "They'll see all of me. I'm not going to shrink myself down and dress like a librarian just to appease your backward parents. Don't be weird. I can wear what I want. I am not your property." And there it was. She had turned a simple, respectful request into a battle for her very soul. A feminist crusade against my supposed patriarchal oppression. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just felt a deep, profound sense of disappointment. I knew in that moment that the weekend was going to be a disaster. She showed up at my apartment on Saturday night, ready for the dinner, wearing a dress that was not just a dress but a declaration of war. It was a tight black leather-like thing with a neckline that plunged to her navel and a slit up the side that went all the way to her hip. It was a dress designed for a nightclub, not for a quiet dinner with a traditional family. "What do you think?" she asked, a defiant, challenging look in her eyes. I didn't say a word. I just got my jacket. The dinner was one of the longest and most excruciating nights of my life. The moment we walked through the door of my childhood home, I could feel the temperature drop. My mother, who is the warmest, most welcoming person on the planet, just froze for a fraction of a second when she saw Megan's outfit. But she recovered quickly, a practiced, polite smile locking into place. My father just gave a slow, deliberate nod, his eyes unreadable. They didn't say a word about her dress. They were too well-mannered for that. But their disapproval was a palpable presence in the room, a silent, heavy guest at the dinner table. Megan, of course, felt it. And instead of trying to bridge the gap with charm or grace, she decided to burn the bridge down. She was loud. She was obnoxious. She dominated the conversation with stories about her influencer events and the drama of her social circle. She was constantly on her phone taking selfies at the table, oblivious to the horrified look on my mother's face. At one point, she was scrolling through her Instagram feed and let out a loud, derisive laugh. "Oh my God, you guys have to see this," she said, turning her phone around to show us a picture of a rival influencer. "Look at her outfit, so desperate. She's trying so hard to be edgy." My father, who had been silent for most of the meal, finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "We have a rule in this house, Megan," he said. "We don't speak ill of others at our dinner table. Megan just stared at him, a look of pure, uncomprehending shock on her face. No one, I realized, had ever told her no before. She just gave a short, ugly laugh, rolled her eyes, and went back to her phone. I spent the rest of the dinner in a state of quiet, simmering rage. She wasn't just disrespecting me anymore. She was disrespecting my parents in their own home. She was a guest who was actively trying to make her hosts uncomfortable, all to prove a pointless, childish point about her own autonomy. The drive back to our apartment was silent. She was furious with me for my parents' rudeness and their judgmental attitude. I was so disgusted with her, I couldn't even bring myself to speak. I dropped her off at our apartment and told her I was going back to my parents' house to help clean up. She just scoffed and slammed the car door. When I got back to my parents' house, the polite, strained atmosphere was gone. My mom was in the kitchen, furiously scrubbing a pot her back to me. My dad was sitting in his armchair in the living room, staring into the empty fireplace. I started to apologize. "Mom, Dad, I am so sorry about tonight. I had no idea she would." My dad held up a hand, stopping me. He looked at me, his eyes full of a sad, heavy wisdom. He and my mom pulled me aside into the quiet of the den, away from the clatter of the kitchen. And then my dad said, the sentence that changed everything. "Son," he began, his voice low and serious, "you don't build a life with a woman who looks at your family and sees an audience instead of a home." It wasn't a judgment. It wasn't an order to break up with her. It was a simple, profound observation that cut through all the noise, all the excuses, all the hopeful delusions I had been clinging to. She wasn't trying to join my family. She was trying to conquer it to make it another backdrop in the endless narcissistic movie of her own life. In that moment, the decision was made. The relationship wasn't just broken. It was a fundamental betrayal of everything I held important. My loyalty was not to her anymore. It was to the values my parents had instilled in me, and I knew with certainty that was as calm and solid as the foundation of the house I was standing in that I was done. I didn't break up with her that night. That would have been too easy, too clean. An emotional outburst would have fit her narrative of me being the unstable, controlling one. No, my response needed to be as quiet, as deliberate, and as soul-crushingly effective as the disrespect she had shown my family. I went back to our apartment late that night and got into bed without a word. For the next month, I became a ghost in my own life. I didn't argue with her. I didn't confront her. I just withdrew. The man she knew, the attentive, doing, problem-solving boyfriend, ceased to exist. I was replaced by a polite, distant roommate who just happened to share a bed with her. The first thing to go was the money. Our finances were largely separate, but I had a joint credit card with her that was supposed to be for household expenses. It had become her personal slush fund for clothes, brunches, and the endless stream of products she promoted on her social media. I called the credit card company and had her card deactivated, reporting it as lost. When she came to me a few days later complaining that her card had been declined, I just gave her a placid, unconcerned look. "That's weird," I said. "You should probably call the company and figure that out." She expected me to handle it, to spend an hour on the phone sorting out her problem. I just went back to reading my book. She was left to deal with the infuriating hour-long hold times and the automated menus all on her own. It was a small thing, but it was the first time in our relationship she had ever been forced to solve her own financial problem. The next thing to go was my participation in her online life. I had always been her reluctant on-call photographer and videographer. I was the one holding the phone at the perfect angle, taking 100 photos until she got the one that made her look effortlessly glamorous. The weekend after the dinner, she came to me in a new outfit, phone in hand. "Babe, can you take some pictures for me? The lighting is perfect right now." "Sorry," I said, not looking up from my laptop. "I'm busy with work." She was stunned. I had never said no before, but it'll only take a minute. "I need to get this post up." "You're a creative person, Megan," I said, my voice flat. "I'm sure you'll figure it out." She spent the next hour trying to take her own photos with a selfie stick, her frustration growing with every failed attempt. The perfect, effortless image she projected to the world I was now making her work for. The social withdrawal was next. I stopped going to her influencer events. I stopped having dinner with her friends. I started making my own plans, reconnecting with my own circle of friends, people I had neglected because Megan found them boring. She confronted me about it a few weeks into my silent protest. What is wrong with you?" She demanded one night. "You're acting so weird. You're distant. You're not helping me. You're not even talking to me. Is this still about that stupid dinner with your parents?" "I'm just reassessing my priorities, Megan," I said calmly. "And I'm not one of them," she asked, her voice full of a self-pitying indignation. "You made it very clear that night what your priorities are," I replied. "Yourself, your image, your absolute right to do whatever you want, regardless of who it disrespects. I'm just taking a page from your book. I'm prioritizing myself. The final and most devastating blow came in the form of a simple real estate listing. Our apartment lease was up in 2 months. We had been casually talking about buying a house together, a house I would have been paying for entirely. One evening, she came home to find me at the dining room table looking at blueprints. "What's that?" she asked, a flicker of hopeful excitement in her eyes. "It's the plans for my new house," I said. "Our new house, you mean?" I finally looked at her, my expression completely neutral. "No," I said, "mine. I'm not renewing the lease on this apartment. I'll be moving into my new place at the end of next month. You'll need to find a new place to live." Update. The reality of her situation finally truly hit her. It wasn't just a fight anymore. It wasn't a phase. It was a logistical and financial apocalypse. She had no job that could support her, no savings of her own, and now no home. The meltdown was spectacular. She cried, she screamed, she begged, she promised to change, to apologize to my parents, to wear whatever I wanted. It was all a performance, a last-ditch effort to win back the comfortable life she had so arrogantly thrown away. I didn't budge. I had spent a month detaching myself emotionally, and her tears had no effect on me. I just calmly told her that the decision was final and that she had 30 days to make her arrangements. Her parents, who she had undoubtedly called for backup, were useless. After the humiliation of that dinner, and after I had calmly and privately explained to her father exactly what his daughter had done and why I was leaving her, they had no ground to stand on. They were ashamed of her, and they offered no support. She tried to turn our mutual friends against me, but the story was too well known. Everyone knew about her behavior at the dinner. Her narrative of being the poor abandoned victim found no purchase. In the end, she had to do the one thing she had spent her entire adult life avoiding. She had to go home. She packed up her things and moved back into her childhood bedroom in her parents' house. A 30-year-old woman with a failed influencer career and no prospects. It's been a year now. I live in my new house, a place I designed and helped build myself. It is a place of calm, of order, of quiet satisfaction. My parents come over for dinner every Sunday. I started dating again a few months ago. Her name is Rachel. She's a teacher. She's kind, she's funny, and when she met my parents for the first time, she showed up in a simple, elegant dress and spent the entire evening asking my dad about his woodworking and my mom about her garden. She saw a family, and she became a part of it. I saw Megan once a few weeks ago. I was at a coffee shop with Rachel, and she walked in. She was with a group of her old friends, the same ones who had enabled her behavior. She looked tired and bitter. Her face was a mask of forced, brittle cheerfulness. She saw me. She saw me laughing with a beautiful, confident woman who was looking at me with genuine affection. She saw the life she was supposed to have, the life she had dismissed as boring and backward. Her fake smile faltered just for a second, and in that second, I saw a flash of pure, unadulterated regret. She turned and left the coffee shop without ordering. My parents' sentence that night didn't just change my mind, it changed my life. It gave me the clarity to see that I wasn't just in a real relationship with a difficult woman. I was in a partnership with someone who had fundamentally different values, and you can't build a lasting structure on a foundation that is fundamentally flawed. She wanted to be the star of her own show, and she was. But it turns out it's a lonely performance when there's no one left in the audience. My former girlfriend Megan and I had been together for a year, and I believed we were building a life. However, a single dinner with my parents revealed a fundamental incompatibility that shattered our relationship. My parents are traditional, valuing respect, humility, and a quiet life. Megan, a self-proclaimed lifestyle influencer, was the opposite, a whirlwind of social media ambition, always performing for an invisible audience. The week before the dinner, I delicately suggested Megan dress modestly. I knew my parents were old-fashioned and wanted them to see her, not just an outfit. Her reaction was explosive. "Don't be weird. I can wear what I want. I am not your property." She viewed my simple request as patriarchal oppression. I was deeply disappointed, sensing the impending disaster. On the night of the dinner, Megan arrived in a tight, revealing, leather-like dress, a declaration of war designed for a nightclub, not a family dinner. My parents, though outwardly polite, clearly disapproved. Megan, instead of trying to connect, became loud and obnoxious, dominating the conversation with influencer stories and taking selfies at the table. She even mocked a rival influencer, prompting my father to calmly state our house rule: "We don't speak ill of others at our dinner table." Megan, unaccustomed to being told no, rolled her eyes and returned to her phone. I was filled with quiet rage. She wasn't just disrespecting me. She was disrespecting my parents in their own home, trying to make them uncomfortable to prove a childish point about her autonomy. The drive home was silent, her furious at my parents' rudeness, me disgusted with her. I dropped her off and returned to my parents' house, where the strained atmosphere had given way to my mother scrubbing a pot furiously and my father staring into the fireplace. I started to apologize, but my father stopped me. With sad, heavy wisdom, he said the sentence that changed everything. "Son, you don't build a life with a woman who looks at your family and sees an audience instead of a home." This profound observation cut through my delusions. Megan wasn't trying to join my family. She was trying to conquer it, to make it another backdrop in her narcissistic life. In that moment, I knew the relationship was a fundamental betrayal of everything I held dear. My loyalty shifted to the values my parents had instilled in me. I was done. I didn't break up with her that night. Instead, I began a month-long, quiet detachment. The attentive boyfriend ceased to exist, replaced by a polite, distant roommate. First, I deactivated our joint credit card, which she had been using as a personal slush fund. When she complained about it being declined, I feigned unconcern, forcing her to deal with the company herself. Next, I withdrew my participation in her online life. I refused to be her on-call photographer, telling her she was creative enough to figure it out herself. She struggled, forced to work for the effortless image she projected. Social withdrawal followed. I stopped attending her influencer events and having dinner with her friends, reconnecting with my own circle. A few weeks into my silent protest, she confronted me. "What is wrong with you? You're acting so weird. Is this still about that stupid dinner with your parents?" I calmly replied, "You made it very clear that night what your priorities are. I'm just taking a page from your book. I'm prioritizing myself." The final blow came with a real estate listing. Our apartment lease was up in 2 months, and we had casually discussed buying a house, which I would have fully funded. One evening, she found me looking at blueprints. "It's the plans for my new house," I stated, looking at her with a neutral expression. "No, mine. I'm not renewing the lease. You'll need to find a new place to live." The reality hit her. It was a logistical and financial apocalypse. She had no job, no savings, and now no home. Her meltdown was spectacular. Crying, screaming, begging, promising to change. But it was a performance. A last-ditch effort to reclaim the comfortable life she had arrogantly discarded. My month of emotional detachment had made me immune to her tears. I calmly told her the decision was final, and she had 30 days. Her parents, whom she called for backup, were useless. After I privately explained her behavior to her father, they were ashamed and offered no support. She tried to turn our mutual friends against me, but everyone knew about her conduct at dinner. Her victim narrative found no traction. Ultimately, she had to do the one thing she had avoided her entire adult life: go home. She packed her bags and moved back into her childhood bedroom, a 30-year-old with a failed influencer career and no prospects. It's been a year. I live in my new house, a place of calm and quiet satisfaction, which I designed and helped build. My parents visit every Sunday. A few months ago, I started dating Rachel, a kind and funny teacher. When she met my parents, she arrived in a simple, elegant dress and spent the evening engaging them about their interests. She saw a family and became a part of it. I saw Megan once recently at a coffee shop with Rachel. She was with her old friends, looking tired and bitter, her face a mask of brittle cheerfulness. She saw me, laughing with Rachel, who looked at me with genuine affection. She saw the life she was supposed to have, the life she had dismissed as boring and backward. Her fake smile faltered, revealing a flash of pure, unadulterated regret. She turned and left without ordering. My parents' sentence that night didn't just change my mind. It changed my life. It gave me the clarity to see that I was in a relationship with someone who had fundamentally different values. You cannot build a lasting structure on a flawed foundation. Megan wanted to be the star of her own show, and she was. But it turns out it's a lonely performance when there's no one left in the audience.